Welcome to Teacher Sensory Toolbox. This is video 2, Sensory Strategies for the Classroom. This is brought to you by Maryville University Occupational Therapy students. So for today's video, we'll be going over strengths of St. Francis of Assisi, environment, transitions, redirection, and sensory support recommendations.
Okay, so to begin, we wanted to highlight some of St. Francis of Assisi specific strengths, and during our observations, we noticed that St. Francis of Assisi did a great job meeting the interoceptive needs of their students by having water bottles out on desk or in the little carts that were in the classrooms. And we also noticed that you guys had quiet or calming corners that were present in different classrooms for students to have a safe space for regulating emotions inside the classroom.
All right, so next we want to highlight some classroom strategies you guys used. We loved that you were utilizing groups. You had small groups, splitting up into maybe groups of 5 or 6 or 7 people. Also using learning stations. There was a use of sensory support, so this was headphones, different chewies, things along those lines. And then lastly, we definitely loved the incorporation of nature elements in the classroom. Specifically in 2nd grade, we saw the giant tree in the corner, which was awesome.
And lastly, we want to highlight some ways that you guys utilize transition, so utilizing bells and timers in between learning activities, consistent strategies to get students' attention, like the "Hey, 2nd graders," that was an excellent strategy. Incorporating movement breaks, like playing videos that had like dancing that the students could follow along to, was great. And then using a visual schedule to go over like the classroom schedule for the day or to go over the small group activity schedule. So great job.
One way you can help support your kiddos is by providing a safe environment that can address the different sensory needs of each student. The environment brings about different sensory stimuli that can cause a variety of responses. To prevent overstimulation, you can help regulate the different outside stimuli that could impact the child's response. Your classroom setup can actually support their sensory processing and be a building block for a higher level of learning. So here are some things you can do inside your classroom to create a safe environment. The first thing you can do is limit visual distractions. This can include reducing the amount of pictures on the wall and things hanging from the ceiling.
Another thing that you can incorporate in the environment is having a quiet corner or a self-regulation corner that students can go to whenever they are feeling overstimulated.
It's also really important to include accessible sensory tools within the environment, and some of these tools can actually be placed in the self-regulation corner for students to calm down and re-regulate themselves. These tools can consist of squishies, chewies, or different things that provide different sensory input.
Another strategy is to set up your environment to make sure your students' basic needs are being met. So that means having water and snacks available and making sure that they have regular access to the restroom when they need it.
Lastly, we have adaptive seating. So not only is it important to provide different seating options such as beanbags, sitting on the floor, wobble chairs, it's also important to note where the students are sitting inside the classroom. So making sure that their seat is facing the board and they could see it pretty clear. And if certain students need to be closer to the teacher, that need is met for them, as well as making sure that regular chairs are supporting their posture by ensuring their feet can be flat on the floor and they also have back support.
Okay, so this is a good example of a sensory-friendly classroom. I've highlighted some of the key features, which can include that the walls are not distracting and students have the ability to work in small groups and the visual schedule is easy to see. Some other things to note is to incorporate natural elements like different shades of blue or greens throughout the classroom, and to have adequate lighting to make sure that it is not too bright or too dim.
Alright, so now we're going to take a moment to identify some non-environmentally friendly aspects of this classroom. If you would like, you can go ahead and pause the video to identify some of those aspects yourself. Alright, so some aspects that we have noticed are that the walls are distracting. It's difficult to see the classroom schedule, and there are no water or sensory tools available.
So next we're going to get into what a calming corner is. And it's a designated space within the classroom where students can go to regulate their emotions and sensory experiences. Some of you guys had this in your classroom, which was awesome, but in this calming corner, students are able to engage in activities such as deep breathing exercises, mindfulness activities, or even incorporate sensory tools to help them calm down and refocus. Some items that are typically included would be soft seating, such as cozy blankets or pillows, and sensory tools such as fidgets or even stress balls.
So now we're going to talk about transitions. And when we say transitions, we mean going from one academic activity to another. So this can be like going from the classroom to lunch, or it can be going from one small group activity to another. And transitions can be difficult for students that have sensory process difficulties because transitions mean taking stimuli away or introducing it. We're going to go over some strategies that can be used during classroom transitions that will help students maintain their equilibrium.
Some strategies to use in your classroom to help with transitions would be to clearly define stations with group assignments that are clear to the students. So during small group activities, making sure that they understand what's happening next at the next learning rotation.
Another strategy with transitions is using a visual schedule, which you can use for your daily schedule, or you can use it whenever you're doing small group activities. Visual schedules are helpful for students to refer to understand expectations when they are transitioning between different small groups or between different subjects.
To help regulate energy levels and regain the student's attention, movement breaks can be included. In your curriculum throughout the day, you can do activities like telling the students to bunny hop to the next station, or crawl to the next area they are going to, or to get a drink of water.
And lastly, we have visual timers with auditory feedback. This means having a timer that the students can refer to, and then once the timer is over, there is a noise that gives them feedback that the timer is over. Having a visual timer can prepare students for transitions, and the auditory feedback provides that cue that it is time to transition. These are tools that you can use for the entire classroom, or you can use these tools when you are reminding a student one-on-one of expectations. So now we're going to talk about redirection. Sometimes when students are dysregulated, the best strategy is to simply redirect them. So first, we can introduce sensory strategies to incorporate during an activity. For example, you can offer headphones or a chewy or a fidget for the student to use while they complete an activity. You can offer an activity to redirect. So if you notice a student is seeking input in a way that's affecting their learning or their peers' learning, you can redirect by offering similar input. For example, if you notice a student who is touching items or their classmates, you can redirect them to a sensory bin that they can touch the items in. You can utilize the whole classroom environment. For example, if a child seems overstimulated, you can utilize a calming corner to help them downregulate. And then reminders about the schedule or expectations, you can utilize a visual schedule or classroom rules to redirect the student. Students may be affected when their peers are dysregulated, so to redirect them, some strategies include explaining learning tools when peers ask about it. So if a student is utilizing headphones or a chewy or a sensory support and a student asks about it, you explain to the student that it's a tool for them that they can use to help them learn. And next, you can model positive interactions. So when a student is dysregulated, you want to interact with the student in a quiet, calm, and patient manner to model a positive interaction for their peers to demonstrate how they should react to the student in hopes that they would respond in a similar manner.
In order for students to effectively learn in the classroom, it's essential to address their sensory regulation needs first. As a reminder, we must meet these needs before expecting optimal learning to occur. This aligns with the foundational principles of the pyramid of learning, which we touched on in the first video. We'll explore some strategies for alerting, calming, organizing, addressing interoception, implementing sensory diets, and establishing routines to support student sensory regulation in the classroom.
So our first sensory strategy recommendation is calming. Calming activities or downregulating activities are meant to decrease arousal and are useful when a student is hyper-aroused to sensory input. So if you notice that they are very rigid, if they are disorganized, or if they are frustrated. So here we have listed calming strategies that target each of the sensory systems. The biggest takeaway from this slide is to implement calming activities after alerting activities, which we will discuss in the next slide.
One example of a calming activity you can utilize is following lunch or recess, having students listen to slow, rhythmic music while stretching. We will go over these activities in further detail during our in-service and answer any questions you may have.
Alerting activities are meant to increase overall arousal and body awareness that is needed throughout the day to stay regulated, burn off energy, and stay focused in classroom activities. Therefore, if kids in your classroom seemed unfocused, restless, or even tired, this is when these activities should be implemented. There can be alerting activities or strategies that can be used to target different sensory systems, which are listed in the chart below. But the key takeaway from this slide is to make sure you do a calming activity after an alerting activity. So for example, if you do a dance party with fast-paced music, which could be considered alerting, you would then want to end the activity with deep breaths to help regulate the students for the next activity, which would be considered calming.
Organizing activities aim to provide sensory input that supports students in managing their sensory experiences while maintaining focus in the classroom environment. We can think of organizing activities as a sense of balance or structure between arousal levels, which is why you, as educators, should use them after an alerting or calming activity. When transitioning to an organizing activity, certain skills such as planning, prioritizing, and time management are highlighted, which are essential for academic success and also align with the pyramid of learning, which we mentioned in video 1. Students mentally disengage from the previous activity and prepare for the next one. It serves as a buffer zone, allowing transitions from a state of heightened arousal or relaxation to a more focused and structured mindset for learning to occur. Examples of this could be a classroom jobs rotation where students take on different roles each week, such as line leader or classroom greeter, or even a classroom cleanup race where students clean up their desks and shelves as quickly and efficiently as possible. Activities that involve both the left and right brain are great for comprehensive stimulation of our sensory systems. This can include animal walks that involve moving on all fours or even splitting students into groups and having them pass a balloon to the left or right, providing that proprioceptive input. Overall, the goal is that an organizing activity will allow smooth transitions without feeling overwhelmed or too rushed, which in turn will reduce anxiety and create a sense of stability where students enhance their overall self-regulation and abilities in a supportive environment.
So now we're going to do a matching activity, and with each scenario, determine which sensory strategy would be helpful. So for our first scenario, your student was attentive during their small group activity but is having difficulty shifting their focus to individual work. Which sensory strategy would be helpful? The answer is organizing.
All right, moving on to our next one. This one says, your student seems low energy and is having a hard time engaging in your class. If you guessed alerting, you would be correct.
The next scenario is your student is bouncing off the walls and having a hard time sitting to focus in class. The answer is calming.
Our next sensory strategy is interoception. We touched on this earlier, but to remind you, it is our eighth sense and often forgotten about or failed to be recognized. It involves recognizing internal bodily sensations such as hunger, thirst, temperature, and emotions. Difficulty in recognizing interoceptive cues can impact self-regulation and overall well-being. Sometimes there's a student who may be unable to identify or communicate what they feel internally. Teachers may notice students who appear restless or irritable without apparent cause, and they even have difficulty concentrating. One of the best ways to address interoception is by simply meeting students' basic needs. Teachers may observe students who frequently ask for snacks or water, or have difficulty sitting still, or even show discomfort due to unmet physiological needs. Some ways to provide basic needs is to ensure students have access to water, snacks, and a scheduled restroom break to support their interoceptive awareness and regulation. Bathroom break schedules should follow rules such as always go 1 hour after drinking water, using the bathroom before and after leaving a place. Other ways to address interoception would be with swinging or rocking movements, and also one of the most important would be identifying. So engage students in mindfulness practices so this can promote awareness of their internal sensations such as noticing their heartbeat or the sensations in their muscles during movement. Social stories are also a good way to identify different emotions they feel. and help them positively cope with internal sensations. Some mindfulness examples include sharing things that you see or hear in the environment. You can squeeze putty or other objects and notice how the hands feel, rubbing feet on the carpet and noticing sensations there, or even feeling your heartbeat after activity. Lastly, breathing activities are really good to do with students who have a hard time recognizing and communicating their interoceptive needs. So this can be tensing and relaxing those muscles, and even rainbow breathing is such as inhaling by bringing your arms up and exhaling and bringing your arms out to the side, just like a rainbow.
So another sensory strategy recommendation we have is routines. Consistent and predictable classroom routines are going to help students have clear expectations that are going to help them meet their needs at various times of the day, and they can help minimize distractions and interruptions throughout the day. So one type of routine is a generalized routine. This is a routine that's going to apply to the entire classroom. It's going to be a daily routine that includes learning activities as well as non-academic activities like lunch and recess. The daily routine should be sensory supportive, and it should include sensory activities that can help the entire classroom promote regulation. So here are some examples of generalized classroom routines. First, we have a daily classroom schedule. This is going to be a visual schedule that all students should be able to refer to, and it should include pictures or symbols of the activities that they are going to do. Another example we have listed is a sensory schedule that you can incorporate throughout the day. Teachers know their students best, and they can adjust a sensory routine to their specific classroom needs. For example, here we have early morning. Since they're transitioning into the school day, you want to get them organized for the day. And then as the day goes on and they're starting to kind of down-regulate, you can do an alerting activity to get them upregulated, and then you can follow it with an organizing activity. And then after lunch and recess, when they are upregulated, you can provide a calming activity to get them regulated to where they need to be. We also have individualized routines, and these are going to be routines that are for specific students. These are typically for students who have diverse sensory needs compared to the rest of the class, and they would benefit from having a tactile or visual schedule to refer to. And this can incorporate a sensory diet, which we will touch on in the next slide. So like we mentioned in the previous slide, something that can be incorporated in an individualized routine is a sensory diet. A sensory diet is a planned routine of sensory experiences that are designed to help students regulate, which is going to improve their learning in the classroom by improving their engagement and focus and reducing their feelings of anxiety or overstimulation. The idea is that by meeting their sensory needs first, the students are going to be able to participate and focus better in their class. If you're interested in a sensory diet for a student, this is something that an OT can create, and if you think a student might need one, you can refer them to OT.
This concludes our professional development training. I hope you all learned a lot about sensory today and the different strategies to implement in your classroom. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to learn and grow as future practitioners. Scan the QR code if you are interested in additional resources below. We have appreciated our time with you all and look forward to our in-person meeting April 15th. Thank you!